Hey, let's get into my Rams Up power rankings heading into week 11. I have a couple of new teams entering my top 10. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns, 6-3. They pulled off that crazy win over the Ravens. I don't know how they do it. Their offense leaves a lot to be desired, really good defense. And we'll talk about the Ravens giving away another game here in a second. But the Browns, one of the two new teams in my top 10, they play the Steelers next week. And by the way, I have three teams in my green room, including the Steelers and the Vikings and Seahawks as well. Outside looking in, they have some proving to do from my perspective. And my number 9 team saw this coming a few weeks out. The Houston Texans, 5-4. CJ Stroud is incredible, a rookie quarterback that's in the MVP discussion, and he deserves it. Feisty team, they play at Baltimore, and that's going to be a really interesting game. I suspect the Ravens will take care of business there, but do not discount the Houston Texans. I probably should have had them in the top 10 a couple weeks ago. And with the Texans and Browns entering the top 10, two teams dropping out, the Bengals lose. They're on a roll, and then they lose this one to the Texans at home. Got to ding them for that. And then the Bills. I just think we all assume the Bills are going to be there in the end, but they are not playing good football, just giving the ball away over and over again. They lose at home to a very mediocre Denver team. The Bills are out of my top 10 entirely. Who is my number 8 team? My number 5 and 8 teams from last week flip-flopped. The Jaguars come in at 8 with a 6-3 record, dropping 3 spots after being demolished by the 49ers. Both teams came off a bye. The NFL needs to do that more often, but clearly it was a bigger advantage for the 49ers. Plus, they're getting healthy. Deebo Samuel back. They looked really, really good. As difficult as it is for me to say that, the 49ers break their 3-game losing streak and looked really impressive. And we'll talk about them in a minute, but they only jump up to number 5. I was tempted to move them up even more, but they did have a 3-game losing streak. And I'm still... Maybe I'm thinking with my heart more than my head here, but not going to put them higher than number 5. The Jags host the Titans next week, by the way, and I think they'll get back on track there. My number 7 team, the Dallas Cowboys, 6-3. They demolished the Giants, which is kind of like Florida State playing North Alabama, right? It doesn't tell me a whole lot. So the Cowboys move up a couple spots, though. And they have another easy out next week. They travel to Carolina. My number 6 team, holding steady at number 6, the Detroit Lions, 7-2. They host the Bears next week. And they got a big win at SoFi against the Chargers. I knew that was going to be a really entertaining game, and it was. But Lions figured it out. Wasn't an overly impressive defensive performance on their part, though. My number 5 team, the 49ers, like I said, break that 3-game losing streak, get back on track. They're 6-3. They host the Buccaneers next week. And, they're a scary team, man. That defensive line, keep adding to it. Randy Gregory, Chase Young. They added Javon Hargrave in the offseason. Already had Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead. Man, scary team on both sides of the ball. They just need to stay healthy, and if they do, I suspect it'll be them and the Eagles and perhaps the Lions here in the NFC Championship game. Now, my number 4 team, the Baltimore Ravens, 7-3. They drop from number 2 to number 4. They host the Bengals next week. Both teams coming off a loss. And this is the thing about the Ravens. I didn't ding them too much because you look at their 3 losses. That was the one to the Colts in overtime. Matt Gay kicked 4 50-yard field goals. That game with the Steelers, man, they just blew that at the end. And then they blew this one against the Browns at the end. They could very easily be 10-0. And if they figure out how to just close the deal in some of these games, they might be the best team in the AFC, actually. But I got to ding them a little bit for losing to the Browns. But I'd have no problem if you were to argue they're the best team in the NFL right now. My number 3 team, the Miami Dolphins, and they had a bye, scary good team on offense, but they've lost some key games. They lost to the Bills, and Bills are out of my top 10 now, but still, they got that game with the Raiders at home against the Raiders, and the Raiders are on a little bit of an uptick after moving on from their coach there, so that could be a fun game. The big game next week is my number 2 team playing my number 1 team. My number 2 team, the Chiefs, 7-2. My number 1 team, the Eagles, 8-1. That is going to be prime time, must-watch TV. I don't know who I'm picking in this one yet. Probably leaning towards the Eagles because the Chiefs are still missing a little something, I think. But so are the Eagles. So this will tell us a lot about where both these teams are. It's going to be a heck of a game, a really close game. And the winner will be my new number 1 team, right? They have to be. So that's my Rams up week 11, heading into week 11, top 10. And I suspect there will be some more shuffling at the top, especially between my number 1 and 2 team, potentially Chiefs leapfrogging the Eagles if they can pull off the win there at home. So big advantage for the Chiefs there. That's it out here for now from Rams Up.